despite the fact that the Democrats control only one of three elements of the legislative process in Washington, there is a renewed sense of possibility, it seems to me, not just in the in really the two, I think, biggest areas, frankly. I mean, if we look at it from a dollar perspective, right? The two biggest areas that government impacts people's lives every day. And that, of course, is Social Security and in terms of health insurance and the ability to access health. And so let's start with we'll save the Social Security for the second half. But we've just launched basically the 2020 presidential campaign, and healthcare and drug prices, essentially, it seems to me, are prepared to dominate the Democratic primary, and at the very least seem to be sort of to the extent that there's a litmus test this year, it seems like that's it. Welcome to the program, Alex.
I agree with you. I think, and I don't think that litmus tests are bad. I think that they're a dumb litmus test is dumb, but, a litmus test that says, do you support this thing that the vast majority of the American people support, or are you on the side of private equity, Wall Street, pharma bros in robbing us all the time? It's a good litmus test to have for politicians to be on the side of the people. And we're seeing actually some really exciting developments on the front of lowering drug prices. Now, let me just tell you a little bit. You go anywhere in this country, and I get the privilege to do so sometimes, to talk with rooms full of people about why we need to expand Social Security benefits, to increase benefits. And I'll tell you, every time people come up afterwards and what they talk about is their prescription drug prices. What's the benefit, or what good is it going to do me if my benefits go up by $60 a month, but my drug prices go up by $300 a month? Or, I can't explain why this drug I was paying $7 for forever, all of a sudden now I'm paying $80 for. And it's not a Democratic issue. It's Republican, Democrat, Independent, everywhere in this country. People are just at the end of their ability to get robbed by pharma. And we're at that point where something's got to happen. I am just incredibly positive that something is going to happen. And the only debate now is whether pharma can bribe and own enough politicians that the something is small ball window dressing stuff that, and then they'll all be like, we did drug prices, but no one's going to feel it. Or if it's actually these big transformational policies that we are seeing. Sanders-Khanna came out with a bill that was massive. Senator Warren came out with a bill with Representative Schakowsky, also transformative. Representative Doggett and Senator Brown came out with a Medicare negotiation bill that under the hood is also transformative. So, there are big ideas that are getting pushed right now. And, I'm happy to be a part of it.
Well, all right, let's, I'm struck by two things. One, of course, is that in those bills, each of those bills you mentioned, Elizabeth Warren, I guess, is the only member of the Senate in what you just mentioned, has announced her candidacy. But, I think there's a very good chance we're going to see Sherrod Brown and we're going to see Bernie Sanders running for president. So it strikes me as no coincidence, maybe, that these folks are leading with that. And so let's go through those three bills that you mentioned, because it's important to get people familiar with them. And if Warren's already in the race. If Sanders and Sherrod Brown get into the race, presumably, right, that's going to put pressure on people in the race already to come out with either their version of a bill to deal with prescription drugs, or to sign on to one of those plans. So let's walk through it. Let's start with Elizabeth Warren and Representative Jan Szynkowski's bill. This is a pretty, it seems to me, a pretty radical idea to some extent.
Yes, in the true usage of the word radical, it does get to the root of the problem. It is a very elegant, and actually, I'm a total nerd and a wonk, so it's a beautiful piece of policy. What it is it's a public manufacturing bill. So this bill actually takes aim at a market failure that happens on the generic side of the market. We'll talk more about the branded side, but there's somewhat, and most of the generic marketplace actually does work pretty well. And you have actual companies who are, producing medicines at very reasonable prices. But there are instances where in the generic market, there's no competitor. So there's just one generic company, and they act exactly like the branded companies, right? They charge ludicrous prices. And one of the ones that I think is easiest to think about and to see just how rigged the system is the EpiPen. Everyone is familiar with that one. EpiPen was manufactured by Mylan. It's a generic product, and it was priced so high that people couldn't afford it. And you're talking about kids who, have a poorly labeled cookie that has peanuts in it, and they can die. And Mylan is selling this for hundreds of dollars, and it became a huge, thing. Everyone's like, this is outrageous. We need to lower the prices. So in comes this other company, Teva, and they're like, don't worry. We're going to bring in our version of the EpiPen. We're going to ride in and save the day. You know how much they charge for theirs? The exact same price as EpiPen. The exact same. They didn't even lower it $1, right? I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. And that is what too many companies actually do. They collude together to rip people off. So the Warren-Szynkowski bill says that there are instances of market failure, and in those instances, the government can be a manufacturer of last resort, and that could be the government actually produces drugs themselves. It's actually not rocket science, and we have done rocket science in the past. Or they can just contract with a manufacturer to make sure that a drug is produced and available to the public at a reasonable price.
Now, Alex, I said this is a radical idea, and like most radical ideas that we talk about in this country, it's already happening. You know as well as I do that the VA, in fact, steps in these very instances where you have some type of market failure in terms of generic drugs, and actually manufactures these generic drugs for folks who are, who are patients of the VA. Now, of course, that's only available to vets in this country, and essentially we'd have this program, and it would expand it into the civilian population. And it's my understanding is it's very effective in the context of the VA. No reason why it wouldn't be in the civilian population. All right. Well, listen, we got to take a quick break. I want to come back, and when we come back, I want to talk about the idea that Senator Sherrod Brown has suggested. And also the legislation proposed by Senator Sanders and Representative Ro Khanna regarding prescription drugs as well. And then touch on some very encouraging news in terms of folks who like a social safety net, or I should say social insurance, that will keep them from being worried about living in poverty when they get older. We got to take a quick break. I'll be right back with Alex Lawson after this.